Welcome to the Amateur Redneck Workshop. I'm Harold. The project for today is to build a homemade extruder. Now then, a regular normal extruder is a long pipe with a screw in it. You know, I'm actually an auger, an Archimedes approved screw. And what it does, the tube is heated, usually with electrical elements, but it could be with steam or something. And it's got a die on the end that is heated, and the die's got one or several little tiny holes in it for it to squeeze the plastic out. And what you do with that extruder, it's got a big old hopper up on top of the far end of the screw, and you get up there and you pour your plastic and chemicals and whatever in it, and the screw starts turning and it shoves all that stuff down through the tube where it melts, and by the time it gets down to the die, it's all, you know, soft, mushy, molten plastic, and it squeezes it out through the die. The place I worked at that had stuff like that, we would actually have about, I guess there was 7 or 8 holes in that die, and it would come out of there as strings of plastic, and you would grab those strings of plastic, put them down in the water bath, which would make them solid, and then take a knife and cut off the big blob where you'd grabbed it, and run that down and stick it into a machine called a dicer that would take all those little strings of plastic and chop them into tiny little pellets that would bag up and send off to some place that made finished products. So my extruder is not a tube with a proper Archimedes approved screw in it. It's going to be a tube with a piston in it, so I can just push it down, and I'm going to heat up the tube with plastic in it that I've saved up from one thing or another, and we're going to recycle that plastic into a product, which may or may not be worth making, because the product I'm going to try to make is a knob, and you can buy those down at the hardware store for under $5, you know, depending on how fancy a one you get. And but the doing of it is what makes it worthwhile, and I want to do it for the same reason guys climb mountains, you know, see if I can. And who knows what I may decide to make once I got it worked out, how to make everything, you know, flow smooth. Excuse me. Before we get down to the video, though, I got to tell you about Bubba. Bubba and Cooter decided to go on a little vacation. Cooter got him a camping trailer and hooked on the back of his pickup truck. And so a little before midnight, they take off, headed down the highway, going to I don't know where. And all of a sudden, Cooter slams on the brakes right there as he come to this underpass, you know. And Bubba said, "What y'all do that for, Cooter?" Cooter says, "Well, Bubba," he says, "that there overpass says maximum clearance 12 foot. He says, this here camping trailer's 13 foot. Bubba looks around. He says, "Cooter," he says, "I don't see a cop nowhere. Just floor it and go for it." Well, it's a good thing Bubba's not driving, I guess. Let's get on with trying to make an extruder. This is going to be a long project. I've worked on it for 2 or 3 weeks. Well, 2 weeks anyway. So there may be 2 or 3 parts to it, and I'll try to upload all of them, you know, one right after the other in the same day, if possible, so that you can find out what happens. But I'm going to keep the length of each video down to at least 30 minutes or so, you know. And there's just an awful lot of work involved, and so it made an awful lot of video. So anyway, let's get on with it. That boring bar is an unhealthy distance out there, but I need to go way down to the end, and the only way to get there is with a whole lot of boring bar hanging out. So maybe I'll get this to clean up reasonably good and reasonably quick, and maybe I won't, but we're gonna try it with what we got and see if we get chatter and other unpleasant things. So far it's working all right. I finally got this thing to come round, but there was a lot of chatter. If you look in there, you can see that it looks like a herringbone type finish. Oh, is it going to focus? Blow on the screen, guys. Blow on the screen. Alright, you see that? So I'm going to try to take really tiny cuts and see if I can clean that out of there. I don't know if it will or not, but that's what we're going to try. Okay? I think that's going to do it. I'm going to cut it in a while and I'll bring you back. I can't get a good cut down into that hole that I'm trying to cut over there, so my boring bar is too floppy. So I decided that the best thing for me to do would be to just turn around here and try to make a new boring tool that would fit over there. I'm going to have to stop the camera a minute and go deburr this. Anyway, so I got her lined out here. I think, yeah, tight. This is really nice cutting metal here. I don't know what it is. Mystery metal. Had some kind of a marking on it. I don't know what it was, but really finished cleaning up out here yet. We're going to stop right there and measure the thing. I know I've got a caliper. I'll find the caliper and be right back. Alright, so that's that, and we'll move back to the lathe. Okay, so there's the genuine redneck boring bar, all set up and ready to go. And got a 3/8 tool bit in there, and we'll see if we can knock some of those unhappy little herringbone marks off of there and make her look good. Be right back. I'm relatively sure I'm going to need a smooth surface in there, and so we're going to try to get one. Let's see how this works out. I think we can probably speed that up a little bit. You remember a minute ago when there was a herringbone pattern in there, and let's see if I can zoom in on it. Wrong way. It'll focus. Come on, blow on the screen, guys. Anyway, that's about as close as it's going to focus there, but you can see that's nice and slick. That's what I needed. I didn't need all that rough stuff in there. I'm going to make a little piston to go in it, and I'd like it to seal fairly good. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to seal some. All right, I'll be back in a minute. I'm going to measure it to see if it's tapered from one end to the other. Okay, so I measured 2.01 back here and up here. So I think that's probably good enough to finish there. I think that'll do the job. So next, face this off a little bit and then move on to making the piston. So I'll be back. Alright, let's face it off a little. Once I true this up a little bit, it ought to make a fine piston. A little bit lopsided with a cut on the side there. Well, it still didn't clean up, but that's it. I'm through for the day. I'm going to stick to you guys on the charger, and I'm going in. Okay, so here we go. Back to the job at hand. We got our paper towels hung up, and we're all happy and stuck it there. Sorry about shaking the camera. I was trying to plug the charger into it. So this thing here, I don't think the thing needs to clean up all the way to the outside edge, and it doesn't, so I'm going to call that faced off. No use wasting time cutting off metal that you don't need to have cut off. And past this point, there's harder parts to do that'll take more time, and I need to move on to them so I can concentrate on the harder jobs to come. Alright, I forgot to oil the lathe today. I'll have to stop. I was watching Brian Stanga earlier today, and he was cutting down some big old industrial size tool holders to fit his lathe, and of course that gave me a whole new outlook on things. Instead of next time I see something like that, walking them off and leaving it because it's just too big to be practical for me, I'll know that I can actually just go ahead and modify it to fit this quick change tool post, and that's what I'll do. Everything's got to have a center in it, so there's the center. We're going to put a hole in there anyway because this is going to be a piston, and it's going to have a rod here, and there's going to be some springs on it, and it'll be probably as Rube Goldberg as I can make it. If you know who Rube Goldberg was. If you don't, look him up. I'm sure you can find him on the internet. If you can't, well, come back and tell me, and I'll find you a link to Rube Goldberg. Some of my tool bits don't feel real slick. Alright. Alright, I'm going to set the feed course. I'm going to cut back into this thing probably a little over an inch. That's a little over an inch. Then I'm not measuring the length of the thing in any precision manner because it doesn't really make any difference how precise it is. All right. I got it in reverse. Let's speed it up. No need to be shy, we're cutting aluminum. Shame to have to cut off so much aluminum to get something, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I will put my cheaters on, let them serve as safety glasses. Alright, let's see here.
Alright. Back to it. Lots of cutting. I'm going to stop the camera and I'll come back when it's cut down. You've seen, you know, aluminum shaved off of a big bar before. Well, I got incredibly lucky here. I stopped to measure thinking that I was 10 thousandths away, and look at that. Exactly on there. So I think that'd be a good spot to stop turning. It's a good thing I stopped there. I'd really be upset if I had to turn around and do the other side of that stupid thing. Alright, so I'll set up for the next step. Almost forgot about the camera, but I got the thing cut to size. There'll be about 5 or 6 thousandths clearance between this and the middle piece, but it's going to be hot, so I don't know which piece is going to expand the most, the tube or the piston, but hopefully it won't interfere too much. 6 thousandths clearance ought to be plenty for it to move around in there. I hope. I wouldn't want to get it stuck again like I did the piece of wood, but who knows. I can do things like that. Skilled at it. We'll put us a 1/2 inch 13 thread in this thing. This is going to be about a 60% thread instead of a 50 or 75. I drilled this just a little in between the two sizes. Now I need to slow everything down so I can do a little power tapping. But I'll bring you back when they're set up. This should be set for about 112 RPM. So let's see what we can see. Right. That looks like it was short and sweet. It got in there pretty nice, and probably is threaded about as good as it needs to be threaded. So all's left to do is to take my parting tool and part that little booger off. I don't know if you got a good look at the redneck boring tool, but there it is right there. I had to build to bore the little sucker out a while ago. I say a while ago, it was actually hit the camera. It was actually a day or two ago, maybe. I'm not sure if it was a day ago or 2 days ago. Last time I was out here. Sometimes I work out here a while, and then the boss lady has jobs for me to do, and so I take off for a day of honeydews, or we just go someplace, you know, and whatever the case, I'm not out here every day. Alright, you've seen stuff parted off, I'm sure, but I'll get it started. Backwards. In fact, I want a little more length there. I think I'll remove some of that shoulder, so that'll take a while, so I'll be back for the next step. Well, the piston's not finished yet because I've got to clean up this side here, as I think you can see, but it does go in there and come back out. So when I get it finished up, I should be able to press melted plastic down in there pretty good. And I've put a couple of O-ring grooves. I'm going to put O-rings on it, and there you go. Should work all right. But it's getting late now, closing in on 9 o'clock, and I think it's time to knock it off we'll come back tomorrow.